Imagine keeping a secret hidden in plain sight for 17 years.
Right.
I mean, examined by thousands of the world's smartest people, embedded in the very foundation of systems we use every single day, and literally nobody spots it.
Yeah, not a single person.
But then you hand it to a machine, and it finds that secret in seconds. This week, we saw a threshold crossed. Human expertise didn't just get matched, in some very critical areas. It was rendered completely obsolete.
It is a profound shift. I mean, we are no longer just looking at tools that automate our existing workflows.
Exactly.
We're looking at autonomous systems, discovering things about our digital and, well, biological worlds that our own brains simply aren't wired to see.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today is Monday, April 20, 2026.
And just for context, the research and data collection for this deep dive was conducted between April 12 and 19, 2026.
Right, and the sheer velocity of the developments we are looking at from that week is staggering. You are listening to Macroeconomy AI, and today's title is AI Observatory, week of April 12 to 19, 2026. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's a really crucial week to unpack, especially as we see breakthroughs that are fundamentally redefining human capability, right alongside some massive structural risks.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to get into all of it, from pharmaceutical supply chains being compressed by a decade to a wave of lawsuits that could literally rewrite attorney-client privilege.
Which is huge.
But first, a quick thank you to our sponsor for making this deep dive possible, Tech Innovate Solutions. As a reminder, channel Macroeconomy AI is all about bringing a compilation of analyses and news on macroeconomics, technology, and artificial intelligence.
And if there's one thing this week's data proves, it's that infrastructure is everything.
Yes. Tech Innovate Solutions provides the highly scalable, secure cloud architecture necessary to support the exact kind of explosive data demands we are about to discuss. When the landscape shifts this fast, you need a backend that doesn't just keep up, but anticipates the future.
Yeah, looking at the sheer scale of computation required for what we're covering today, robust infrastructure isn't just an advantage anymore, it is the absolute baseline for survival in this space.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the Stanford AI Index 2026 report, because it puts hard numbers to this feeling of acceleration we all have.
Right.
Generative AI reached 53% global adoption in just 3 years.
Which is wild.
It is. That makes it the fastest dissemination of any technology in human history. I mean, it beat the personal computer, it beat the internet, it beat the smartphone.
Yeah, but the adoption rate is really only half the story. The more critical metric in that report is the capability curve.
The benchmarks.
Exactly. The index notes that frontier models are now scoring over 50% on humanity's last exam.
Wait, for those who don't follow the benchmark wars, what exactly is that?
So it isn't a standardized test of rote memorization. It's a benchmark specifically designed to test the absolute upper limits of expert-level, specialized human knowledge across incredibly niche, complex domains. Breaking the 50% threshold lets the models are beginning to successfully navigate unsolved, abstract problems.
Wow. Which completely explains the absolute tidal wave of capital flooding the zone right now.
Oh, yeah.
Global corporate investment in AI hit $581.7 billion in 2025 alone. That is a 130% jump in a single year.
And the geographic concentration of that money is just crazy.
It really is.
Yeah.
The U.S. is completely dominating private investment at $285.9 billion. To put that in perspective, that is 23 times higher than China's private investment in the same period.
Yeah.
But looking at these numbers, I have to wonder about the collateral damage. The report shows junior developer jobs have fallen nearly 20% since 2022.
Right, the labor shift.
And model transparency plummeted from 58 down to 40 points on their index. It seems like the faster we go, the darker the black box gets. Is this speed of adoption actually outstripping our ability to govern it?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that drop in transparency isn't an accident. It is a deliberate strategic moat.
You mean companies are hiding it on purpose?
Exactly. The economic stakes are so high that open sourcing architectural details or training data is now viewed as corporate suicide.
Wow.
And regarding the junior developer jobs, it's a shift in the mechanism of labor. The AI isn't necessarily writing flawless, production-ready code on its own yet, but it allows one senior architect to output the volume of 5 junior developers.
So they just don't need the juniors.
Right. We are transitioning from a model of writing syntax to a model of reviewing and curating generated logic.
And the physical cost of all this generation is staggering. I mean, training Grok 4 alone emitted 72,816 tons of CO2.
It's massive.
AI data centers now have an installed capacity of 29.6 gigawatts. Like, to visualize that, 29.6 gigawatts is essentially the peak energy demand of the entire state of New York.
Yeah, it's a huge footprint.
We're essentially running an entirely parallel electrical grid equivalent to a major U.S. state, just to power cognition. It feels almost reckless to deploy this much energy for generation models.
Yeah.
Like we're powering a whole state just to run our chatbots.
Well, it looks like an exorbitant waste if you only view AI as a chatbot.
Fair point.
But that energy isn't just generating text emails. It is being deployed to solve fundamental physical and biological constraints.
Okay, how so?
The strategic insight here is that we are spending energy today to invent entirely new paradigms of efficiency tomorrow. We are building cognitive infrastructure faster than we are building legal or environmental safety nets, sure.
Right.
But yes, it requires the power of New York State, but that computation is currently being aimed directly at the life sciences sector, which has the potential to completely offset those costs.
Which perfectly transitions into what is arguably the most impactful shift this week, the biological gold rush.
Absolutely.
Traditionally, taking a drug from discovery to a patient's hands takes roughly 10 to 15 years. It's this grueling, incredibly expensive process of trial and error.
Exactly. You are essentially wandering through a nearly infinite latent space of molecular combinations, hoping you stumble upon a compound that binds to a specific disease target without causing lethal toxicity.
But this week, the timeline didn't just shrink, it completely collapsed. Novo Nordisk formalized a massive partnership with OpenAI across its entire value chain.
Right, specifically targeting obesity and diabetes.
Yeah, to edge out Eli Lilly. And they are aiming for full integration by late 2026. Plus, OpenAI simultaneously launched GPT Rosalind, named after Rosalind Franklin.
Their domain-specific model for biosciences.
Exactly, and it scored a .751 on the Bixbench bioinformatic benchmark. That is unprecedented.
And the way it achieved that score is critical. I mean, it isn't just guessing chemical structures. GPT Rosalind essentially understands the grammar of biology.
What do you mean by grammar?
It models the intricate 3D folding pathways of proteins in a way a human researcher simply cannot visualize. However, because of the power of this system, OpenAI has heavily restricted it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it is entirely ring-fenced for enterprise clients like Amgen, Moderna, and Thermo Fisher.
Well, Amazon is swinging hard in this arena, too. AWS just launched Amazon Biodiscovery, or ABD, merging over 40 biological foundation models with wet lab workflows.
Yeah, that MSK project.
Right. They partnered with Memorial Sloan Kettering and generated 100,000 antibody candidates in just a few weeks. But I have to push back here, because I understand brute forcing a math problem or brute forcing a combination lock, but applying generative AI to biology terrifies me.
It's a common fear.
If ChatGPT hallucinates code, my app crashes. But if these domain models hallucinate a protein structure, do we accidentally print a toxic molecule? It's like having the lock combination versus actually having the blueprint of human biology. Could an AI hallucinate a bad drug?
That is the exact risk profile the industry is trying to solve right now. And it's why AWS is structurally merging these models with physical wet lab workflows.
The physical labs.
Exactly. The mechanism here is what prevents a hallucination from becoming a dangerous real-world drug.
How does that work?
By automatically routing the AI's generative outputs directly into physical automated lab testing, they anchor the AI's predictions in actual biological reality.
Oh.
Yeah. The AI proposes 100,000 highly probable antibody candidates. But it's the physical chemistry in the wet lab that confirms efficacy and filters out the noise. It closes the loop between silicon and carbon at a speed humans just can't match.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because that exact same mechanism, the AI's ability to hold vast, complex systems in its working memory and spot patterns we miss, is completely upending cybersecurity.
The cyber arms race.
Exactly. It just went vertical. Anthropic's Project Glasswing launched earlier this month, but the fallout dominated the entire week. They gave exclusive access to a model called Claude Mythos Preview to a tiny circle of partners like AWS, Apple, and JP Morgan.
And what it did was staggering.
It autonomously found thousands of zero-day vulnerabilities across major operating systems,
Including a critical flaw in FreeBSD that had been sitting undetected in the codebase for 17 years.
Right. 17 years. Thousands of human developers reviewed that code. But the AI doesn't read linearly like we do.
It sees the whole architecture.
Yeah, it's like Anthropic handed the AI the blueprints to a bank vault. And instead of trying to pick the incredibly complex lock on the front door, the AI instantly pointed out that the architect forgot to put hinges on the back door.
That's a great way to put it.
It found logic overlaps that humans just couldn't see. And because of this, Anthropic deemed the model too dangerous for public release. These models are basically like digital nuclear weapons that only a few governments and corporations possess.
Which is why they locked it away.
Right, they practically locked it away and then donated $100 million in credits and $4 million in cash to open source security to help fix the vulnerabilities their own AI just uncovered.
What's fascinating here is the sheer asymmetry this event creates in global security. I mean, Anthropic's donation isn't just corporate philanthropy.
No.
No, it is a desperate attempt to patch the hull of the ship before the water rushes in. Because if their model can find these vulnerabilities, it is only a matter of time before a less restricted model finds them too.
And OpenAI immediately recognized this shift,
Exactly, responding with the launch of GPT 5.4 Cyber.
which is specifically built for defensive cybersecurity. They expanded their Trusted Access for Cyber program, TAC, and actually lowered the refusal threshold for complex tasks like reverse engineering, so defenders have the tools they need.
The strategic dilemma we have crossed into is that AI is definitively better at finding system vulnerabilities than the most elite human experts.
Period.
Period. If you are a network defender today and you do not have an enterprise AI auditing your code, you are effectively blind. Defenders must now rely entirely on corporate AI to protect essential infrastructure.
That's a scary thought.
The keys to breaking and securing our most critical digital systems are now concentrated in the hands of a few private models.
And if Anthropic and OpenAI hold the only models capable of defending that infrastructure, that creates a massive geopolitical vulnerability.
Oh, completely.
I mean, if you are a nation state without a native, sovereign AI ecosystem, your entire digital grid, your banking, your communications, your power systems, is essentially at the mercy of American corporate policy. If a nation doesn't own its AI, does it really own its future?
Precisely. You cannot outsource the foundational defense of your nation to a foreign tech company. That is why we saw Brazil formalize a major pact this week.
Right, via their Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, MCTI, and SERPRO, with the Chinese AI company iFlyTech.
And the scope of this pact is highly specific.
Yeah, they aren't just buying software. They're building public data centers, specialized Portuguese language models, and native cyber infrastructure. The explicit goal is digital sovereignty and reducing reliance on Western tech.
And looking at the data, you can see exactly why they feel the urgency to build their own digital border walls.
Exactly. According to research from Parteltech and Agenzia Lupa, and looking strictly at the raw data here, removing any of the surrounding political noise, AI-driven disinformation as an organized strategy in Brazil is exploding.
The numbers are startling.
Cases jumped over 300% between 2024 and 2025, going from 39 identified occurrences to 159.
Yeah.
And incredibly, 80% of all fake AI content ever recorded by the agency was registered just within the last 2 years.
It's not just isolated trolls anymore. It's high-volume, automated, hyper-localized campaigns.
Yeah.
And that is the exact mechanism driving these geopolitical pacts. When disinformation scales structurally, building a sovereign, culturally fluent AI model isn't just an economic priority, it is a matter of state security.
Because the general models miss things.
Exactly. A generalized model built in San Francisco simply will not catch the nuanced regional slang being used to manipulate an election in São Paulo. Nations are realizing that to detect and combat this waves, they need their own localized cognitive infrastructure.
But while nations are trying to build sovereign borders, the existing legal frameworks are just getting absolutely broadsided by this technology.
Because total chaos.
The legal reckoning right now is, total chaos. We saw USAI copyright lawsuits cross the 100 mark this week, sitting at 131 globally.
That's a lot of litigation.
Massive YouTube creators like H3 Productions and Golfolics, who combined represent over 4 billion views, are suing Apple, OpenAI, and Amazon.
The intellectual property landscape is entirely fragmented. The EU is aggressively pushing the AI Act to force data transparency and penalize scraping.
Right.
Whereas China is taking a highly pragmatic approach, actually recognizing copyrights for AI-generated content as long as there is significant human input.
So they're optimizing for output.
Exactly. They're optimizing for economic output while the West is still litigating the inputs.
And the concept of privacy is getting completely redefined too. GitHub announced that starting April 24, their Copilot tool will default to training on users' code and chat interactions, unless you're paying for the high-end enterprise tier.
Yeah.
At the same time, ChatGPT expanded its free tier ads into Australia, New Zealand, and Canada after a pilot in the U.S. pulled in over $100 million in annual revenue.
Yeah.
But the liability rulings this week are what really fundamentally changed the internet.
You're looking at the California securities fraud ruling.
Yes. For decades, platforms like Meta or Alphabet have been shielded by Section 230. The defense was always, we are just the platform delivering the ad, we didn't write it, so we aren't liable.
Right, the bulletin board defense.
Exactly. But this massive court ruling just stated that if an AI has ultimate authority over generating and targeting ad content, the platform loses that Section 230 shield.
That is massive.
They can now be directly sued for securities fraud under Rule 10b-5 if their AI serves up fraudulent investment ads. It completely destroys the legal foundation of the modern internet.
Because the mechanism of action changed, the platform is no longer a passive bulletin board. The AI actively participates in the creation and curation of the deception.
Wow.
And this collapse of old legal boundaries extends all the way down to individual private rights.
So what does this all mean for the average person? Because the ruling from U.S. Judge Jed Rakoff terrified me.
The GWG Holdings case?
Yeah. He ruled that 31 documents generated by the Anthropic Claude model for the ex-CEO of GWG Holdings are not protected by attorney-client privilege.
This raises such an important question about how we interact with these interfaces. People use these chatbots conversationally, treating them almost as digital confidants or sounding boards for highly sensitive strategies. But the judge explicitly ruled that AI tools are not lawyers. And more importantly, the public privacy policies of these platforms, which admit to ingesting data for training, inherently void any expectation of confidentiality.
It's crazy. You could literally be workshopping a legal defense or a proprietary business strategy with an AI, and those chat logs could be subpoenaed and used against you in court.
Exactly. The law moves at the speed of precedent while the technology is moving at the speed of computation.
That's a great way to frame it.
And the strategic insight for you, the listener, whether you are a developer pushing code to GitHub, an executive mapping out a merger, or just someone asking a chatbot for legal advice, is that you must treat every single interaction with a public AI model as if you were speaking into a microphone on a public stage.
Yeah.
The old silos of privacy simply do not exist when the tool you are using is a sponge designed to absorb your data for its next iteration.
It is truly a paradigm where we are laying the tracks, riding the train, and somehow trying to write the safety manuals all at the exact same time.
Which brings us back to the core theme of this week's data. I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Okay.
We've seen that AI is starting to understand our biology at a molecular level better than we do. It is auditing and guarding our most critical digital infrastructure because human eyes aren't fast enough. It is even beginning to dictate the boundaries of our legal privilege. As we hand over these immensely complex domains to autonomous systems, are we quietly outsourcing human judgment entirely? At what point do we accept that the systems we built to assist us have actually become the ultimate authorities of our reality?
That is a fascinating and incredibly heavy question, and it is exactly the kind of critical thinking this rapid evolution demands of us. We really appreciate you taking the time to explore this incredibly complex landscape with us today.
This material is a compilation of open projections from third-party sources and is strictly informative and educational. It does not present any ideological bias. It does not constitute an investment recommendation or financial advice of any kind. Projections are subject to frequent revisions according to new information obtained, new external facts, and even new narratives. Likewise, past performance is no guarantee of future results.
Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive.
Thank you for listening. We hope you'll join us for the next one as we continue to track these unprecedented developments.
That was today's Macroeconomy AI. We'll leave it here. You all stay well and keep an eye out for our new broadcasts. Subscribe to our channel, access links, and follow Macroeconomy AI on social media. Bye.